back to the Auto Ranch. I have one of my favorite topics today that we're going to cover, which is when you're buying a new car, you're googly-eyed, you're excited, you're getting this brand new shiny piece of metal, is taking the time to look it over and make sure there's no damage on the car prior to you driving off. This is your opportunity prior to taking delivery to note any damage on the vehicle. The dealer should then provide you with what they call a due bill or a WEO statement signed by a dealer manager that outlines anything they owe you in terms of repairing the damage. A lot of people make the assumption falsely that because it's a new car that there is nothing wrong physically damage-wise with the car. Obviously, mechanically, you drive it, and if you notice something, you should point that out and probably have that fixed before you take delivery. But we're talking about cosmetics here. So, and I'm a picky guy, and I have OCD when it comes to cars, and so a lot of times when dealers see me show up, they get nervous. And I'm a little crazy with that stuff. You may not be that way, but I'm talking about stuff that shouldn't be there and is noticeable if you look for it. A gentleman one time told me, this guy's a pretty wise guy, was selling cars probably 35, 40 years of his life. He told me, Jason, there's no perfect new cars. And I would tell him back, yeah, you're right most of the time, but at least 10 to 15% of the time, I actually do find the perfect new car. But he's right. The vast majority of the time, there is no such thing as a perfect new car. So you say, well, it's a new car. It should be perfect, right? Well, we can debate that all day long, whether that's the case or not. But having purchased and helped over 500 people purchase new vehicles in their life, I can tell you that you have to take the time to take a look closely at the car. Cars, from the minute they're conceived in the factory to the minute you take delivery, they go through hundreds of hands of different touch points, right, of people. And sometimes the parts, even when they're assembled, have damage. But a lot of times stuff happens, prior to or post-production. Realistically, if you go to a plant, and see it, you'll see that a lot of times the people that are producing those cars, they're just a number to them. I mean, it's a widget. They lean against the cars, they bump up against the cars, and transporters, they have a hard job to do, and realistically, that's what they're going to do as well. It's a job for them to get that car from point A to point B. When the car gets to the dealership, a lot of times people make the assumption, oh, these are car people, they're going to take care of the car. I have often said some of the worst places in life for car damage to occur is at a dealership. And that starts when the car gets there as a new car. It goes through a pre-delivery inspection process, and then you usually have the lowest paid employee in the dealership who's going to clean that car. There's a good chance he's using dirty rags and dirty soap and dirty cloths to dry it off. So if you're at all particular, and if you're buying a high-end car or a sports car, I have found, as you read along a lot of the forums, it's better off just not to have somebody touch the car, and just tell them, hey, skip the detail for me, and I'll take a look at the car when I get there as it arrived. And yeah, it'll be dirty, but you'll be able to see some of the stuff, some of the damage we're talking about, without them introducing a lot of scratches or other potential damage by having somebody clean it who's really not, doesn't even know how or doesn't have the right or the right tools to do it. So, a lot of times people will say, well, I trust the dealer will tell me about this stuff. They obviously have looked at the car. That they should point this out to me, right? And I think a lot of times dealers don't intentionally not tell you about damage on cars. But I will tell you, in my time of buying a lot of cars, I have seen cases, and I'll give you the grossest example of it. Back in 2018, I was buying a brand new Corvette at a dealership. I was excited, and I had looked over the car pretty carefully, but right before I went into the dealer to sign the paperwork, a reflection of the light hit the back of the car just the right way, and I was like, oh my goodness, the thing had a big gash in the back hatch. It hadn't broken the paint, but it had definitely put a dent in the fiberglass hatch of the car. And that was going to be a deal breaker for me. Now, in typical, obviously dealer fashion, they're good at quick thoughts and thinking about it. And I said, hey, you got another yellow one over here on the floor. If the hatches are the same, I'd be okay. I don't want any paint work. And that's one big thing I will say when you're looking these over is you don't want the dealer to have to repaint or spray any of your panels. If that's the case, probably better off walking away and getting having to get you another car. In this case, they were able to actually take the hatch off of this other car in the showroom and swap it with the one I was buying, and then in theory they would paint the one that was damaged before they put it on the other new Corvette. Now here's where the other part of the story comes in. The next day or the day after, I took it to their body shop to have that swap done. And when I was there, one of the technicians came out and said, the guy said, hey, see if you can buff out this damage on this, and if not, we're going to swap them. And the guy said, I already looked at this car. The sales guy brought this. Is this the one the sales guy brought down a couple days ago and showed it to me? I told him, you can't buff this out. And I knew they couldn't buff it out. But I didn't know that the salesperson had noticed the damage, taken it to their body shop. He basically told them, this is a repaint. He takes it back, doesn't tell me that, hopes I don't notice it. And then I did. And so, obviously, that's a dealer I no longer do business with. They're on my do not use list. Probably cost them 15 cars since 2018. And maybe 15 cars to them is not that big a deal. But to me, the trust factor was a big one. So, do they sometimes know? Yeah, they do. And sometimes they're going to hope that maybe it's not that big a deal to you, or you just don't notice. So that's why it's critical that you take a close look. So here's how I do it, and this should take about 15 minutes when you do it. It's not a quick once-over thing. If that's, to some people maybe that's fine. They don't really care. They're going to drive the car. It's going to get scratched or damaged within a day or two. That's fine. But if you care about the condition of your car, you really need to start at the bottom of the panels and look at every panel, particularly the bumpers, even down low, because I can't tell you how many new cars I've seen sitting on showroom floors that are damaged, that have been bottomed out. So take a close look, starting at the bottom of every panel, stand up, walk your eyes through the panel carefully. Be sure to check the roof. Be sure to check your expensive aluminum wheels that you probably paid for. And don't forget the interior. Be sure to look for I've seen cars where the leather has been torn, and give it a thorough, look over. But before you leave, one of the biggest things you find on new cars are dents and dings. And a lot of times a dent or ding cannot be seen when you look at it straight on the panel. You have to look at it from a profile view down the side to see the light reflection. So you need to get at an angle to where you can see down the profile of the car where the light's reflecting off the panels to notice if there's any dings or dents. So, and if whatever you notice, you point out to the salesperson again. If it's minor touch-up stuff where every dealer's got a touch-up guy that, you'll have to bring the car back, but they'll, a lot of times they can make it look pretty close to new. It's never going to look perfect when they touch it up. Now, the dents and dings, if the paint isn't broken, they'll do this thing called paintless dent removal, and every dealer's got a PDR guy, they call them, and those guys are great. I mean, if they've got a good one, they'll be able to remove that dent without repainting the vehicle. And that's no big deal. Now, if the paint is broken, or it's a very large dent, that's a different issue, and something that probably can't be fixed without a repaint. And that, again, gets back to my original thing. If you can stick your finger in the scratch and feel it's through the clear coat, or it's a dent, or a very large dent and the paint's broken, I personally would probably have them get you another car, and let them, either try and sell it to somebody else without, fixing it, or have them actually do the paint work. It's very difficult a lot of times for particularly a dealership body shop to match paint. So those are my suggestions, when you're looking. And they will give you a statement, like I said, a written statement basically telling you that they're going to repair that. And usually you have 30 days to get that taken care of. So, make sure that you do that. So that's really it in a nutshell. It's pretty simple. I get some people are not going to be as particular as others, but don't make the assumption you're paying a lot of money for your new car, even more today than ever in the past. It's a fairly simple thing to look at, and it's a fairly simple thing realistically for them to fix. You paid for a new car, make sure it's in the condition that you paid for. I appreciate you listening. You know, if you enjoy car buying tips and auto finance type of things, I have a car buying and auto finance blog. I'll put a link in the description. I hope you'll check out some of my other content. And if I can ever help you in your car buying or auto finance journey with buying or selling a car, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.